Hi, Makayla. Thanks so much for being here and talking with me today.
No problem. Happy to talk to you about one of my favorite topics.
Great. So why don't you just introduce yourself, just a brief background, where you're from, what year in
Yeah.
school you are, and we can go from there.
So my name's Makayla. I am a student at Brandeis University. I'm a rising junior. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I'm double majoring in comparative literature and European cultural studies with minors in English and Hispanic studies. So yeah.
That must be keeping you quite busy.
Yes, very busy, but I love all of it. So
Great.
fun time.
So tell me just a little bit about, the role that Jewish life on campus played when you were looking at colleges and how you ended up choosing Brandeis.
So when I was looking at colleges, Jewish life was a factor, but it wasn't like the end all be all. I actually I wasn't planning on going to like a school with a very significant Jewish influence. I thought it was always nice to have a nice Jewish community, but it was never such a big thing. And then when I got to Brandeis and realized just how many Jews there were and how like flourishing the community is, I am so grateful that that's where I ended up. It's Hillel is how I made some of my best friends. It's what I do every Friday night. I go to Shabbat dinner, and it's become a really significant part of my life. And I'm really glad that I decided to go to a school with such a significant Jewish population.
That's great. That's really nice. And I always ask this question, and obviously Brandeis is a little different than most schools in that there is such a core Jewish identity. But do you think there are
Mhm.
things that your school's Jewish community does differently or does better? Just anything unique that people should know?
Yeah, so the way that Brandeis Hillel is structured, we have like the Hillel as an organization. They do some events themselves, like Shabbat dinners, but Hillel more serves as an umbrella organization. We have a ton of affiliate groups. I think we're at 20 at this point
Wow.
that are all under the Hillel umbrella, and they're all student run with like student boards who report directly to Hillel board. And we have something for everyone. I'm part of the Israeli dance troupe, which is really fun. We have a Jewish a cappella group. It's one of the like premier a cappella groups on campus. We have like Hillel organization of gamers, Challah for Hunger, where people bake challahs to donate to like food banks. Um, and we have like other educational opportunities as along with like all of our minions, which are also part of our affiliate groups. And all of our minions are separate from like the denominational social groups who even like I'm not an Orthodox Jew. I kind of fall in between conservative and reform. So, but I can go to anyone's events, even if I don't want to go to their services.
That's
So
really great.
I
And
think
it's nice.
I, yeah, I think that's a really important thing about the Brandeis Hillel structure.
That's great because it gives students who maybe aren't as interested in the religious piece a way to get involved with the Jewish community.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Have you experienced any sort of anti-Semitism or anti-Israel? I know it's a very hot topic, and parents and students
Yeah.
are very concerned as they look at colleges.
I personally have not experienced any anti-Semitism or anti-Israel sentiment. I We just had our Israel week, and part of the point of Israel week was to present a more balanced narrative of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We had discussion groups we had like a joint discussion group with J Street. We had BIPAC do presentations. We had Israeli cultural showcase events, just so you could get like the most well-rounded picture. And I feel like that's a really important thing. It speaks to not only Brandeis Hillel, but Brandeis in general. Brandeis really wants to like emphasize well-roundedness and a fuller understanding rather than just a single narrative. And I feel like Brandeis Hillel really embraced that with their planning of Israel Week.
That's great. That's great. It's good to hear. Do you have any advice that you would give to Jewish high schoolers who are going through this process or starting this process, now that you look back on your college search?
Hmm. So, well, my biggest piece of advice might not have to do all that much with Judaism,
That's okay. That's
but
okay.
um, my biggest piece of advice when you're looking for colleges, at least, is to go with your gut. Do what feels right. Block out what everybody else is telling you and do what you think is the right move for you. I promise you, I'm a tour guide. And when I see people and they're like, oh, yeah, sorry, we committed to another school, I take no offense because I know that everybody's just going to the school that's right for you. Brandeis might not be the right school for you, and that's totally fine. And I think that the most important thing about this decision is knowing being able to distinguish and decide for yourself what you think is the best fit. And it's something that you hear a lot, but honestly, the school makes the experience. So, like, I wouldn't have fit in at some of the other schools I got into and were considering. I made the right choice for me, and I couldn't be happier.
That's great. That's really, I love hearing when students are happy. I have one other question for you that was not one of the ones I told you ahead of time. So I apologize
Yeah.
for putting you on the spot. But one thing that I run into when I have students who are looking at Brandeis is sometimes they're worried that it will feel too Jewish. Mostly my
Yeah.
Jewish students. And so I'm wondering, what would you say to them?
Yeah, that's totally understandable. On my tours, I get that question a lot. So Brandeis isn't a Jewish school. It's secular but built on Jewish values. So there's a lot of like tikkun olam, repairing the world. There's a lot of mutual respect. Like we have all the Jewish holidays off um, in order to be sensitive to those who practice and like can't work on certain holidays. Um, there's a lot of that, but honestly, though Judaism does feel like the majority, we actually make up about 30 to 40%. Like it fluctuates and it'll vary on who you ask, but it's usually 30 to 40%. And so there's plenty of people who are not Jewish and plenty of social life outside of Hillel. You can choose, you can go to like 2 Shabbat dinners, and that's totally fine. You can go to them all, also totally fine. You can not show up at all, and nobody will respect you any less. You can still have a full and vibrant social life and meet amazing people, even if Hillel's not your cup of tea.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much. And I really enjoyed hearing about Brandeis, and I'm sure that our students will as well.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.